What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talkin MMA. It's been a while since I said that. Reason being is, I listen to you guys. I listen to what you want to see, the stuff you'd rather hear. I put out a poll, I think, a couple months back, and the large number of you guys want to see fighter interviews. And I think that those are the things that I do enjoy most. Those are the things that, well, I enjoy everything, but those are certainly things that I enjoy doing. And seeing that you guys want to see that, I think it's smart to allocate my time to the things that you guys want to see. I still do the pay-per-view breakdowns with Sam from Yin Yang Monkey. That's a separate thing. The interviews we just mentioned, that's a separate thing. But the Talkin MMA podcast, the numbered episodes, which I think we were at about like 17 or so before we sort of took a break on that. I'm not stopping on that. I'd like to make some changes before I bring it back. And this is sort of a bridge episode. This is an episode where I wanted to tell you guys that first and foremost. But while I'm here, want to talk about some stuff. I'm going to get into that in a second. But as far as this podcast goes, I'm trying to bring in a very credentialed guest that I could have at least once a week, to do this with me. I'm trying to make some changes, maybe take some fan questions, fan calls, things along those lines. So I'm going to be working hard over the next month or so to make changes to Talkin MMA. The numbered episodes only on this channel, not the whole channel, just the numbered episodes. So I'm going to be working to make changes in that department. And just to make it better for you guys. So I figured in the meantime, I give you a little episode here. And what we're going to talk about on this episode is, the usual stuff, man. We're just going to talk a little crap. We're going to sit back and enjoy this as MMA fans. We're probably going to get into UFC 280 a little bit, right? That's something that I don't think I've addressed yet on this channel. We're going to get into Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva, get into that a little bit. And then maybe, end it off with some MMA news, man. So let's get right into it, right? We have UFC 280. It was a card where, if you saw the breakdown on my channel last week, it was, maybe the card of the year, maybe the fight of the year, Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. We got the guy who is the protege to Khabib Nurmagomedov. That's Islam, right? Even his father said he was going to be champion one day. His father was always very high on him. And, it was something that I felt was inevitable. Charles Oliveira is an unbelievable fighter, and so is Islam Makhachev. To me, the only difference in that fight was Charles has lost far more than Islam. Charles has been submitted. Charles has been knocked out. Islam's been knocked out one time, fair. But besides that, never been knocked out, never been submitted, never been finished, and never lost, besides, again, that one fight, right? Charles, no disrespect to him. I love Charles. He's an unbelievable fighter, one of the best lightweights of all time. All those things have happened to him. He's lost fights. He's been submitted. He's been knocked out. So I was looking at that fight and saying, well, I've never seen Islam go through the things that would have to happen for him to lose to Oliveira, like a lot of people were saying, right? And that was really the only difference to me, because when you look at it skill for skill in the octagon before the fight, obviously, I guess we could say differently now, right? It looks like Islam is just levels above everyone in the grappling, the wrestling, all that. But before the fight, I was like, these guys are as skilled as anybody. I'm not giving it to anybody per se, but man, I mean, way to show out Islam Makhachev, finishing Oliveira in the second round. And tell you, man, the squeeze on that submission, that guy's got to have some squeeze. And I think I heard Daniel Cormier hint at it, that you train with him and you feel that guy's power, the squeeze he has, and it's just unbelievable. These guys like him, Khabib, like, sure, there's a lot of, understanding of weight, leverage, and whatnot, right? That's what makes them great, right? All that, just the understanding of getting a hold of somebody and taking them to the ground. They have maybe the best IQ on the planet in terms of that kind of stuff. But, it might even go beyond that, right? Because it's like these guys are like superhumans, man. Like, right, Islam gets you in that choke, and, Oliveira maybe within a few seconds. Like, it does, we've seen fighters, get a choke locked in on them and they last a lot longer. And I'm not knocking Oliveira. I'm saying that, that's a testament to Islam. Dude probably had a tight squeeze in there. So just a scary guy. I don't know who's going to stop him. You look at the 155-pound division, and I'll pull up the rankings right now. Let's just run through this and tell me who stops Islam Makhachev. Tell me who beats him, okay? So we know Alexander Volkanovski, he's going to fight him next, right? The 145-pound champion, the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You got him beating Islam. You got him stopping that style. Maybe if Islam has to deplete his body a bit more and go down to Volkanovski's weight class, to his wheelhouse where he's the king, maybe. But on top of the matchup that I don't like, we got Islam, facing a guy who is a weight class below him. On top of the fact that I don't like the matchup, so I don't know. Again, Volkanovski. I'd even say he's proven me wrong on this channel before, right? Because I was big on Holloway. I thought Holloway was going to win the trilogy. I thought Holloway had won the second fight. Volkanovski clearly proved me wrong. Unbelievable fighter. I think he's the greatest 145-pounder of all time. So similar to Oliveira, I will give Volkanovski his respect, but also say no disrespect in the fact that I do think Islam Makhachev would beat him. But yeah, I mean, these are both great fighters. It's interesting because the number one pound for pound ranking might be on the line, right? That's what Volkanovski said, which I thought was very interesting. And if you're going to market this fight, that's got to be the way you market it, right? You got the number one pound for pound on the line versus the 155-pound title on the line. So both guys are putting something on the line here to a degree, right? Like, a lot of times the challenger is just coming in and getting that title. Volkanovski's putting his crown of, I am the best pound for pound guy on the planet against Islam Makhachev. So both guys got something to lose here. Both guys have something that they are putting up here. So it's an interesting fight, man. But again, before I close out here on this main event, let's run through it. Oliveira just beat him. Poirier beat him. Gaethje beat him. Beneil Dariush. I mean, that's kind of like all the Islam haters on Twitter. That's like their last glimmer of hope is Beneil Dariush, right? And hey, Beneil Dariush is a very good fighter. Keeps proving people wrong, might I add, because a lot of times he's not favored to win these fights. A lot of people didn't like him against Tony. A lot of people didn't like him against Gamrot. A lot of people, not even that, but even before, he was being picked against in these fights, he faced adversity. He came back like a dog in a lot of these fights, right? So it's interesting. It's a guy who can certainly overcome the odds and overcome what people have to say, and I think that would be an interesting fight. But do I see him beating Islam Makhachev? I don't. Michael Chandler. Do I see him beating Islam Makhachev? I mean, Chandler didn't get past Oliveira. And I know MMA math doesn't make sense, but I mean, I think you're starting to see that there's levels to this, right? There might be tiers here. Like Islam might be on a tier on his own. Then you might have Oliveira. Then but if you can't get past Oliveira, I mean, or Gaethje for that matter, like you got to beat one of those guys. You got to get back in there with one of those guys, prove me wrong there. And then, I'd love to see what he could do. But, that's just me saying what I'm saying, talking shit. I mean, Michael Chandler's an unbelievable fighter. So respect where it's due. But, yeah, I mean, I think to say that Chandler gets a title shot after he beats Poirier, I mean, it's interesting because you're probably going to have to fight again for one of two reasons. One, perhaps the UFC might not think you've done enough in their eyes, given that you've lost twice as well. Number two, we know Volkanovski's fighting Makhachev, so there's going to be a bit of a waiting period. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that whole thing plays out. Let's move on to that co-main event, though. But yeah, man, the lightweight division is interesting, but it seems like there's a guy that's deadlock at the top now that might not relinquish his spot anytime soon. Or I just don't see who beats him anytime soon, But I could be wrong, right? I'm no expert here. Only time will tell. The next fight is Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. Oh, man. I feel bad for Aljo in a way because I don't think he's a bad guy at all. I think he's actually a very nice guy. I think he's a very knowledgeable guy, right? If you follow his YouTube channel, he's got a great breakdown. So shout out to you, Aljamain Sterling. But TJ Dillashaw, he wasn't right for that fight. Like, it just is what it is. Which leads me to say, again, I feel bad for Aljamain Sterling because if you look at the 3 title fights of his career, the first one where he won the title against Petr Yan, he won by DQ in a fight that Yan was looking like he was running away with. But again, who knows, right? Like, he could have, Aljamain could have gotten him later on. But whatever. Let's just say up to that point, Yan was having his way with him, gets a DQ, and Aljamain wins the fight. A lot of people aren't happy with that. Second fight, Aljamain wins the fight, but a lot of people don't even think he won the fight. Dana White came out in the post-fight press conference. The president of the promotion came out and said, I had Yan winning the fight. And that upset Aljamain. I remember he spoke out about that, and, maybe he was surprised by that, angry, or whatever the case may be, but it was an interesting thing going on. And now this third freaking fight, TJ's arm or his shoulder rather, pops out in the first round, and it's freaking dangling like I don't know what dangles, but his arm's out there dangling, right? He somehow makes it to the second round, so he gets back to his corner. They pop the arm back in. They check it out. Everything's okay, ready to go. Arm pops out again, and quite easily, I might add. But yeah, Sterling starts ground and pounding him. TJ's pretty much defenseless, can't do anything, right? It's kind of like a one-legged, or like a tiger with a bum leg, right? Eventually, it's gonna die, right? So it's like, TJ's a down man. He doesn't have a shoulder. He's out there. He's fucked pretty much, and Aljo gets a Sterling, but Aljo gets the finish rather by ground and pound, and yeah, that's the thing though, right? Is now people are saying, oh, well, you got lucky, TJ's arm popped out. We never would have known what was going to happen. But that's just it, right? You can't blame the guy because we never would have known what was going to happen. And what we saw, Aljo was doing his job, right? He was beating up a compromised fighter, but that's what you're supposed to do, right? You see the fighters compromised, and that he was doing his job 100%, And you go in there, man, and it's pretty much a professional street fight, right? With like a couple rules. There's not many rules, but there's some rules, right? Well, you can't bite a motherfucker's face off, but and other things, right? But it's pretty much a fight. It's a fight, and if this was a street fight and TJ's arm popped out of his socket, I mean, Aljamain's gonna kill him, right? So it's a fight, and these things happen in fights. So yeah, bad luck. I would say bad luck to both guys because Aljamain Sterling has yet to get that one dominating win where you're like, yep, there you go, that's the champ. Stop disrespecting him. And I feel for him. And then TJ, it's like, I just found out recently, through the news, TJ is going to be out for about a year. I mean, what? He's going to be out for a year? How old is he? What is he, like 36? TJ's like 36, right? How the UFC website doesn't have his age is beyond me. The guy's like 36 years old. And we're talking about what he's going to come back at 37, 38 from this. Rehab, all this stuff. It's tough. He's not going to get a title shot, obviously. And, what's going to happen then? Are you going to beat another one or two top contenders at age 37, 38 and get back in there? Very possible, We see fighters fighting into their 40s. TJ certainly seems like he has the nutritional aspect locked in. But, yeah, we'll see what happens with that. It's going to be interesting. Sorry, I'm kind of going through a little bit of a migraine here, so I'm kind of trying to fight through it here. Slight migraine, but we'll be all right. Manageable. But, yeah, man, it was an interesting fight, no matter how you slice it. But the result was just kind of sad. A lot of people are mad at TJ because it almost feels like, well, TJ fucking said it himself, right? TJ said, I feel like I held up the division. And if that's the case, then why'd you fight, I guess, right? But, again, is he going to get that chance again, though? Is he guaranteed a title shot if he goes and gets surgery and waits out? You're not. I bet Dana didn't appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of the fans out there didn't appreciate that. But, I mean, if you look at it from his perspective, you're not guaranteed a title shot, right? I don't know, man. Like, either way, there's no guarantee. You know what I mean? Either way, there's no guarantee you're going to get a title shot after that surgery, regardless of whether you fought Aljo or not. But he did, took the risk. And, I don't know what they were thinking in there, but if you said the shoulder popped out damn near 20 times in camp, then I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be either one. But, man, what a sport, huh? Let's move on, man. Let's talk about a couple more fights here before we move on to the next agenda. Let's go into Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, man. Oh, man, that was a good fight. I think anybody that saw that fight knows that we got to at least respect Sean O'Malley in the sense that he is a guy who belongs in the top 5 of the division. Like, no freaking doubt about it. He belongs in the top 5 of that division. He's as good as any guy on any given day. Do I think Petr Yan won the fight? I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you. I don't know because I've only seen the fight one time. I would have to really go back and watch it in depth. I'm going to take all the smarter people, all the analysts, I'm going to take their word that, the people that said that Petr Yan won, I'm going to take their word on that, and I'll probably bank on that. And, based on kind of what I saw in that fight, sure, I'll say Yan won. And, you got Khabib and guys like that outraged. But again, I'd have to go back and watch it. What did I see in that fight, though? Again, Sean O'Malley can hang. But I'm going to say this, though. I will say this. I'm not outraged that he won the fight. Like, am I crazy for thinking that wasn't a robbery? But then again, it's like what do you define as a robbery? Because then we're just going into things like that, right? Like, what's your true definition of a robbery? Like John Jones, Dominic Reyes, and I love John Jones. That might be my favorite fighter on the planet. But that might have been a robbery. You know what I mean? Other fights, again, I brought it up earlier. Volkanovski, Holloway too. Love both guys, but that might have been a robbery. Like I thought Max won it. Volk won the trilogy, so it doesn't even matter. But I thought Max won this. I think those are robberies. Was this a robbery per se? I think it's two criterias that you have to look into account here. What's your definition of a robbery? And the second criteria in terms of just who won the fight, what do you rank the wrestling? Like, how do you view the wrestling? Like, what do you think is the impact? Because he wasn't necessarily like threatening him with submissions and ground and pounding him continuously. He did get some pepper him with some good shots here and there on the ground, but it was mostly just to control him on the ground. Like, he wasn't really damaging him. And maybe I saw otherwise, but I thought O'Malley did more damage in the fight. We're talking about moments where, in terms of who was more hurt at certain moments in time, who had more of those moments where he got their opponent hurt. I thought O'Malley had more of those moments, but man, interesting. And then we got Beneil Dariush versus Gamrot. Gamrot was a minus 210 favorite in this fight, which is interesting again because Beneil Dariush, a lot of fights where it doesn't seem like he comes in as the favorite. He just keeps proving people wrong. Where is he? I mean, I know we were just looking at the rankings, but I think what is he, around 5 still? Did he even move up from this fight? Because he fought number 9, and Gamrot's a beast, but do they reward you for fighting number 9? Like, let's see. Okay, sure. Yeah, he moved up 2 spots. I thought Beneil Dariush was in the top 5 already prior to this pay-per-view. Or at least he should have been, no? But then again, I don't know. We're talking about a killer division. But yeah, Beneil Dariush moved up 2 slots. Where's Gamrot? Gamrot moved up a slot off a loss. That's interesting, huh? It's crazy how Conor McGregor's still in the fucking rankings at 155 pounds, man. Conor McGregor is number 13. And it might be the toughest division in the entire sport. And he's still in the fucking rankings. Crazy. But yeah, a good victory for Beneil Dariush. It was a pretty close fight, right? Yeah, it was a close fight. He won a unanimous decision, but it was maybe not close, but it was a damn sure it was a competitive fight. So that's good, man. Let's talk about a couple other fights here before we wrap up. Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady was another one. I don't know how that wasn't on the main card. I guess they just wanted to add a little diversity with the women's fights, so they threw in Kaylin Chikagian and Fiorot there, which is fine. I don't got no problem with that. You also sort of need a nice headliner for the free card, the ESPN card. So Belal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, man, it was a fun fight. It was a fun fight. Was it what I expected? No. I got to be honest with you. I thought Sean Brady was going to win. And I thought Sean Brady was going to be able to impose his game plan, get the fight to the ground, and do what he usually does. But I knew that Belal, going into the fight, was very good on the ground. A lot of times he uses his wrestling when he has to, and he'll control and dominate guys, and it looks very impressive in that department. But again, it's also the addition of we know what he can do on the feet. Proven to be a very good stand-up striker, man. Starting to put guys away. He beat Wonderboy Thompson. He was able to stand with a guy like that, too. He's able to knock out Sean Brady. It was very impressive. And here's the thing about Bilal Muhammad is the guy is so disrespected, and I have no clue why. Like, why do you guys hate Bilal Muhammad? I don't know why. Like, what did he do to you? Like, it's funny because there's two people, right, that you see, like, especially on social media, particularly, that are not liked. There's two people, and that's Bilal Muhammad, and that is fucking Islam Makhachev. Like, what did they do to you guys that you hate them so much? Like, they're just winning fights. They're doing what they have to do. Like, I'm seeing people on Twitter say, like, you know, they'll put up a picture of Beneil Dariush and, like, Alexander Volkanovski, and they'll say, like, these are our last hopes to beat Islam. And I'm like, what do you mean your last hope? Like, what did he do to you that it has to resort to being the last hope for people to beat this guy? You know what I'm saying? It's so silly, but it's so, like, funny at the same time. I don't know why, man. Fucking just Twitter and social media. It's it could be a crazy world, but it's also kind of a strange world. But back to Bilal, man. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Where's the disconnect? Because even as I try to think now, like, I don't know, what's the disconnect? Like, is he corny? I don't think he's corny. Or am I wrong on that? Like, is he corny? He's a great fighter. Like, I don't know. Are you mad that he got eye poked by Leon Edwards? No, right? The guy was freaking crying in the corner after it happened because he didn't want the fight to be stopped because he knew this was a big opportunity. He was fighting like the number 2 or number 1 guy in the world. He knew he just messed up the opportunity. Like, does that look like a guy who didn't want to be in there? But I don't even think that's that relevant. But I'm trying to find stuff. And I can't find anything. Like, why do you guys hate Bilal Muhammad? I don't know. But I'm shocked. I thought Sean Brady was going to win the fight. Sean Brady was a favorite, minus 140, but it was close odds. It was kind of like a pick-em fight. But, man, good fight. And what does that do for him? Because I know he was like 5, and he fought 8. So similar to Beneil. What do they do? Did they reward him for fighting a guy ranked below him? Let's see. So Bilal moved up from 5 to 4. He passed Gilbert Burns. I think that's fair. I think that's accurate. So Bilal's sitting at 4. And where's Sean Brady? Sean Brady didn't move. He's at 8. So it didn't really kill Sean Brady, per se, the first loss of his MMA career. But it's still shocking because, again, he was also undefeated. So it's kind of interesting. It was just a fun night all around. And then one more guy I'll talk about is, it's my boy Sam's guy right here, Mohammed Mukayev. Wow. You talk about a guy who is talented. You talk about a guy who could take the fight to the ground when he wants and dominate you. You talk about a guy who can wow you in the stand-up. A guy who pretty much has everything. That's the guy right there. He's a young man, right, from the UK. But he's, the guy is looking to be champion. He's looking to be the youngest UFC champion ever. He's looking to surpass John Jones. I think he even put, like, the timeline, like, how much longer he has to do it and everything on his social media. I fucking love it. The guy was a minus 1150 favorite. That's got to be by far the biggest favorite on the card. But guess what? He took care of business. There was some moments in the fight where I thought he got a little overzealous, where he knew he had it so much in the bag that he was maybe not being cocky, but he was just doing things he didn't have to do. Extra showing, whatever. I would never accuse a fighter of showing off because they're more man than I'll ever be. But what a beast. What a fucking beast that guy is, man. What a beast. So, all in all, you look at UFC 280, and of course, there's two aspects to every big pay-per-view, right? You look at the fight on paper beforehand, of course. You look at it and you say, oh, wow, look at these fights. They're great fights, yada, 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 stack card. And then you got to look at the fight afterwards. You got to look back on it and say, well, how did it play out, right? Was there a lot of knockouts? Was there robberies? Going into it on paper, it was for sure the most stacked card of the year, and maybe the most stacked card in a few years. I really have to go back and check that, but it was the most stacked UFC card that I can remember recently, right? At least the past year or two. Afterwards, no. Is it the best UFC card ever? No. In terms of how it played out, again, no, absolutely not. Like, you got, like, remember the fight night where I think it was all finishes? It was literally a finish in every single fight. It was like the second time it ever happened or something along those lines. Those are cards where they play out beautifully after. That's a whole different category, though. I personally, out of the two, think you have to judge a card by what's on paper. Because, you know, how it plays out, whatever the case may be, fine. Now, you can get two guys in there that nobody knows, and it could be the best fight ever. But what gets people excited is the build, right? And the build is when you get two guys that should be in there with each other, two big guys. That's more exciting. And I think that's what you have to judge a card by. You got to judge a card by how it's put together by the matchmakers, man, on paper. You got to judge a card by the card, right? So let's get into another event that is coming up this weekend. We're actually going to talk about two events this weekend. I think you could probably guess what those are going to be. And I want to talk about maybe just the main event here, because I think it's a very good fight in the 145-pound division. It's a UFC fight night, of course. What number is it? I do not know. It's weird because sometimes they'll like number the fight nights and then they won't number it, and then it's like Apex and then they go on the road. I wish they just numbered all of them like the same and it was a 62, 63, 64, but no, it's like UFC San Diego, UFC Apex, UFC 63, UFC Las Vegas, UFC 63, UFC 64, UFC Apex, UFC Michigan. You know what I'm saying? It's so fucking weird, but whatever, man. I ain't going to complain. We love this shit. Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen. That is the fight that I am talking about. As you could have guessed, that's a big-time fight. Arnold Allen, how many fights has that guy won in a row? Like fucking 8 or 9? The guy's on a crazy win streak. Calvin Kattar had a great fight against Josh Emmett the last time around. A lot of people had him winning. I saw that fight. I thought it was a fight where it could have gone either way. I was happy with either decision. It was like, remember Paul Felder versus Dan Hooker? Like, I was cool with whoever won that fight. You know, there's certain fights where, shit, if they have to be a draw, they have to be a draw. But if they're not, then you're cool with whatever way it goes. Arnold Allen, the last fight, again, no disrespect to Hooker, kind of dismantled him. Put a beating on him pretty bad. Swung for the fences early and then just got the finish. Like, the dude was swinging. Like, once he had his opportunity, he didn't open the door. He fucking kicked it down and got the finish in the last fight, Arnold Allen. Cerebral when he has to be, patient when he has to be, a very well-rounded fighter. Calvin Kattar is as tough as they come. Remember in that Max Holloway fight what that guy was able to endure? Such a tough guy. Good luck stopping him. Good luck putting his lights out. As skilled as they come. Great stand-up, man. I'm expecting a great fight. I think Arnold Allen's gotten some finishes here and there lately, but I think this is going to be a tough fight. I think this is going to be his biggest test yet. This is the biggest test of Arnold Allen's career. Maybe not by far, but it certainly is. And I think it's going to go 5 rounds. I see 2 tough guys, 2 game guys, 2 guys that bring the fight. And yeah, I just see a very good, well-rounded, hard-fought 5-round main event here in the UFC Apex, man. It's going to be a fun one. If you look at the rankings in terms of the implications it has on the division, because that's always what you want to look at, right? Calvin Kattar's number 5. Arnold Allen's number 6. This is a big fight because it's a chance for Arnold Allen to crack into that top 5 finally. Hell, you would have thought he was with all the wins he's had recently, but nonetheless, number 6 versus number 5. Huge fight. This is a fight that's going to say who either Calvin Kattar, you stay in the top 5, or Arnold Allen, you get into the top 5. And you know when you're in the top 5, you're always in the ballpark for a title shot. 6 and 5 might be thousands of miles away. Like 6 and 7 could be almost the same thing in the rankings, but maybe the difference between, you ever thought about that? The difference between number 5 and 6 might be fucking thousands of miles away. Because think about it, when do you see like number 6 guys get title shots? And maybe it happens a lot more than I'm leading on, but I feel like once you're in that top 5, boom, it could be any one of those 5 guys. Get a good win here, get 2 good wins here, you're in the ballpark. And that is what is on the line here. If Arnold Allen gets the win here, maybe one more, maybe a number 1 contender fight just because Kattar's coming off the loss to Emmett. If Kattar was coming off the win against Emmett, then maybe it's different. But maybe he fights Emmett for a number 1 contender fight. I wouldn't mind that. Maybe he gets in there and tests himself against Max freaking Holloway. Imagine Max Holloway against Arnold Allen. And then for Calvin Kattar, I wouldn't mind seeing a Josh Emmett rematch. Who wouldn't mind seeing a Josh Emmett rematch if he wins? Brian Ortega versus Calvin Kattar. You like that? Yair Rodriguez versus Calvin Kattar. You like that? A lot of fun fights, man, in this division. A lot of fun fights. It's a big main event with big implications. A lot, sometimes on these UFC fight nights, you get great main events. You get good ones. You get decent ones. This one, I'd say, is at the very top of that list because it's number 5 versus number 6, man, in one of the better weight classes. Look, you even got Tim Means versus Max Griffin. I feel for Max Griffin. I thought he won the last fight against, who was it against? Magny? I think it was against Magny. And I even made a video on that months back. Would love to talk to him about that, man. Maybe I can get him on. But, sometime on after these fights. Obviously, it's a little too late now to get him on this week, considering the fight's in like 2 days. But whatever. He fights Tim Means. He is a minus 190 favorite. It's going to be a fun fight, man. Waldo Cortez versus Vandera. Very good fight. 2 big boys. Phil Hawes versus Roman Dolidze. Chase Hooper's back. Carlos Moda makes his UFC debut. The LFA champion. The guy is a freaking stud. And, man, if there's a guy to watch out for, could be him, man. He could be a guy who makes some noise in the flyweight division, a division that's certainly on the come up. He's a plus 150 underdog, but very close odds. What a fun card, man, for a fight night. What a fun card. I think if you're a fan, you got to tune into that, man. There's some can't miss fights. But should be a good event. All right, so let's talk about another event that's happening this weekend. I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday. It's probably Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday. We got Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva in a boxing match. This is a very interesting fight. And the reason I specify in a boxing match is because you would think this fucking fight is a UFC match or an MMA bout because of how much they talk about MMA. So, just to start, did you see the press conference last night or yesterday? Literally 70% talk about MMA / UFC. Like 70% of it. It is insane how Jake Paul takes all these opponents and the opponents are MMA guys. It's just insane, man. It's insane. And, credit to him, though. He was going to box Tommy Fury. The fight fell through. Credit to him. He was going to fight Hasim Rahman Jr. The fight fell through. But shit, man, I thought the Silva fight was going to fall through, too. And it would have been 3 fights in a row falling through, which leads me to say, like, is there something a little fishy going on here that this guy is fighting these guys where these fights fall through? He's actually supposed to fight 2 real boxers. Fights fall through. Oh, he's back to the MMA guy. No, this fight's good to go. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I've never been to that party of, these guys took a dive against him. No, like, give the kid his props. He beat Woodley. He beat Askren. But it's weird. There's some fishy stuff going on. Like the whole Hasim Rahman Jr. versus Jake Paul thing with the whole weight miss, and they didn't sell enough tickets for MSG. There's something very strange happening there. And let's just see what reveals itself down the line, or if anything even does reveal itself. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But back to the fight, you look at it, right, and it says it here. Pro records here in boxing, 3-1, it says here on Tapology for Anderson Silva. What's the boxing loss that Silva had? Because it wasn't recently, right? It wasn't post-UFC. It's got to be like maybe early in his career or something like that. Jake Paul, 5-0. You might as well have fought mop buckets except for like Tyron Woodley in boxing because Ben Askren is a great mixed martial artist. The betting odds are damn near even. Jake Paul is a slight favorite. It's minus 125, minus 105. So Jake is the minus 125, Silva the minus 105. And the reason why I think they're so even is because there's always such an unknown in Jake Paul fights because he's fighting better guys each and every time. So you don't really know where he's going to be each time he's fighting that better guy. So it's so hard to even gauge. Like the kid's fought 5 guys. If you're looking at real fights, he's had 3 real fights. I'll give him 3. It's hard to even give him 3 because, come on, dude. You look at Askren in the fight. what's the Misfits boxing thing that KSI does, right? 70% of that card would have beat Ben Askren, who was with a bad hip, out of shape, and fucking retired, and was never a boxer to begin with. The guy was shamed for striking in MMA. Like, he took the fight to the ground. He didn't even entertain the stand-up. So, hard to even count that, but whatever. Let's say the guy's been in 3 fights in his career, because Woodley's still a tough guy, and he's a former UFC champion, but he's not a boxer again. This is his toughest fight ever. I mean, I don't think you could say that it's not. It's definitely his toughest fight ever. Anderson is quicker than any guy he's fought in there. Anderson has a far, it is not even close. Anderson Silva has a far, far higher fight IQ than any guy Jake's ever fought by a gazillion miles, even Tyron Woodley. He's longer than any guy he's fought. He's rangier. He's a better counter puncher. You know, does Woodley punch harder than Silva now at this phase in his career? You know, perhaps, but just in every way you look at this fight, this is the toughest fight of his career, and it's not even close. A lot of people look at the age, 47. Is that something? Sure, it is. But I think, to be fair to Jake Paul, let's not overstate the age, because it was this 46, 47-year-old guy that literally starched Tito Ortiz with one punch, which Tito's never been, known to be a boxer. But, okay, it was this 36, 37-year-old guy that beat, fucking guy's name's leaving me now. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. beat that guy, that 36, 37-year-old, So, I mean, you tell me what he is, but, the guy's still good. Or 46, 47-year-old, not 36, 37-year-old. But, again, the guy's still good. Like, he still did that at this age, sort of, So, if that guy shows up to fight Jake Paul, what's going to happen? Now, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., I keep bringing that up, but, man, I mean, is that not an impressive win? Who the hell would have thought Anderson Silva would have beat him in a boxing match? The guy's won a couple world titles, if I'm not mistaken. The guy at one point was good enough to be a contender to fight Canelo. He fought Canelo Alvarez, got his ass beat, sure, but he was considered good enough to challenge Canelo at the time. Like, he was the next guy. This was I remember watching the fight. It was a big mega fight. It was a big pay-per-view. Chavez Jr., the son of the great Julio Chavez, fighting Canelo Alvarez, maybe the best fighter in the world at the time. It was a huge fight. He was in that fight. Like, that's a guy he fought. He fought that guy. So, and he beat him. So, you got to give him props where it's due. It almost feels like Anderson has the height and the reach in every aspect, no? So, the reach is 77.5 inches for Anderson, 74 for Jake. And then Jake's 6'1", Anderson is 6'2". So, yeah, I mean, Anderson definitely has if you look at the measurables, Anderson's got that as well. What a tough fight. I'm going to make a prediction right now. I haven't even thought about it, but I guess just for fun, I'll tell you who I got winning. I think Anderson Silva is going to get it done. Now, this isn't me being the pro MMA guy, like, oh, look, he's shitting on Jake Paul. No. Listen, if I have to say Jake Paul's going to win the fight, I will admit it. I just don't think he's going to win this time. I think he'll put up a decent showing, but I don't think he's going to win. I don't. I picked Tyron Woodley to lose to Jake Paul. I picked Jake to win that fight. I think both times even. Even in the Askren fight, I think I picked Jake Paul to win. So I picked him to win like the last 3 fights. Again, like the last 3 fights against MMA guys. So I am not hating here. I just think Anderson Silva's, the fight IQ, like the muscle memory of punching and not getting punched, that's something you develop from such a young age. And I know Anderson hasn't been doing purely boxing throughout his career, but he's just so good. He has such a high fight IQ. Again, we just brought that up. Such a high fight IQ that I think he will outscore him over the course of, 10 rounds? 8 rounds? Probably like 8 rounds, right? Maybe 10. I would probably think it's like around 8. But yeah, I'm going to pick Anderson Silva here. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I think you'll see a fight similar. I think Prime Anderson would starch him. but I think you see a fight here similar maybe to the Woodley 1 fight, where I don't mean similar just overall. I just mean in the aspect of a pretty good back and forth fight that goes the full distance, you know? So we'll say that. But one thing I want to talk about here, man, as we move on to the last thing is this. That bet. Let's talk about that bet that Jake Paul proposed to Anderson Silva. If Anderson Silva beats Jake Paul, he will fight Jake Paul in a kickboxing match. If Jake Paul beats Anderson Silva, Anderson and Jake become like the co-guys to this new fighters union thing, you know? That's what Jake Paul wants to do. That's what he's claimed to have wanted to do for a couple of years now, right? And this is like the big proposition to Anderson. You join me, you come with me side by side, and we will tackle this fighter pay issue. That's the proposition here. So again, Jake wins, Anderson joins him in the whole fighter union, fighter pay stuff. Anderson becomes his guy, side by side pretty much. Jake wins a fight. Anderson and Jake fight in a kickboxing match. So let's talk about that now. Let's let that actually sink in and let's analyze it. If Anderson Silva wins, who the fuck is going to want to see Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul in a kickboxing match? If Jake Paul cannot beat Anderson Silva in a boxing match, he's going to beat Anderson Silva when he can use his legs? And I'm supposed to be interested in that bet. Why? Let's say the other thing happens. Jake Paul's been talking about this shit for a long time and nothing's happened. He's not the first person to bring this stuff up either in the sport, and nothing has happened. So am I also supposed to believe that the other side of the bet works? I don't know, man. But that, again, like, is nobody thinking about that? If Anderson beats Jake, why would you want to see them in a kickboxing match? For no other reason than to see Jake get his jaw broken. That's it. Other than that, why would you want to see them in a kickboxing match? Anderson Silva is at his best in MMA. He might not be fully at his best against Jake Paul in kickboxing, but he can do a lot more now. And then in boxing, he's at his most limited. Why would you want to fight him in a kickboxing match? Somebody please explain that to me. Please put it into terms for me so that I could be excited about a bet like that, because I don't see what there is to be excited about that logistically. Like, what sense does that make? I don't know. And let's talk about another thing too, man. KSI, yeah, I have nothing against you, and I'm damn sure not a Jake Paul fan, but yeah, Jake Paul, I will say it again, will beat your ass if you guys fight each other. You know, the guy talks a lot of crap. He's like, oh, he's fighting Anderson Silva. Jake's going to win this, that, and the other. Like, bro, you make it seem so easy. So you can beat him, but Anderson Silva can't beat him, right? Like, Anderson Silva, bro, would probably beat the shit out of you right now, KSI, at 47 years old. You fought that guy, that kid Pineda. That was fucking embarrassing. That makes me question who gives these titles of professional boxer. And then you fought an out-of-shape rapper in the first fight, and we expect to take you fucking serious? I don't like Jake Paul, but Jake Paul's fought UFC fighters, guys that have been in there, have won world championships, guys that are real tough fighters. Tyron Woodley's not a boxer. Not a boxer. Tyron Woodley would fucking obliterate the Pineda kid that KSI fought. Obliterate him. That kid was terrible. I don't know what KSI is. I don't know what power KSI thinks he has, what leverage he thinks he has, because I'll tell you this again. I don't hate KSI. I don't even watch him. I don't even like Jake Paul. I'm just telling you guys the fucking truth. And KSI fans, you guys got to stop. Because number one, you don't even watch the fucking sport, boxing or MMA, and you're crossing over from watching his fucking FIFA streams, and now you're starting to give valid opinions about, oh yeah, he beats Jake Paul, he knocks him out. Are you saying that because you're a fan, or are you saying that because you like his fucking YouTube streams and his videos? Which one is it? And I'm not an MMA expert. I don't claim to be. At least I fucking watch, though. You guys are just coming in here from fucking left and right saying, oh, KSI is going to do this, that, and the other. Have you ever even seen a fucking fight in your life? Mortal Kombat does not count. So KSI fans, I'm not going to say nothing bad, but just be realistic here. That's all I'm going to say. KSI fans, be realistic with where your guy's at. And maybe, just maybe, that will make him realize where he's at. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Don't kill me. Let's move on, man. Let's close this shit out with some MMA news. It's feeling so nostalgic, man. It's feeling like the old days of Talkin MMA, the pre-fighter interview days, the lonelier days. But you guys have stuck with us, and we're here, man. So whoever's here, whoever's watching, I appreciate you. Let's get into this news as we wrap up the show. Jorge Masvidal on borderline vegetable Nate Diaz's UFC exit. What's this? Good for him to leave before he gets serious brain damage. That's good for him to leave the big leagues before he gets serious brain damage. Masvidal recently told MMA Fighting following his promotion's event. I think the guy's a borderline vegetable. His interviews, his spunkness, his wittiness and sharpness has gone to shit. You have to wait for him. The pauses have gotten longer. Yeah, I mean, I'm the biggest Nate and Nick Diaz fans, but I've been saying this for years, like especially Nick. I have no desire to see Nick fight. I have no desire to see Nick Diaz fight. If you see him speak in just any form of conversation, whether it's casually, whether it's in an interview, whatever the case may be, does he look like a guy that has never been punched before? Or does he look like a guy who's been punched a lot and might be starting to take the effects of it? Now, don't tell me that's the way that they talk, because I remember Nick and Nate years ago, and they didn't talk like that. They spoke a lot more fluently. So don't tell me it's this Stockton accent, because it's not. It's not that. Now, I bring up Nick more than Nate because I don't think Nate got it as bad, but like I wonder, and I don't know, like I think Nate could still fight, yes. I think he should still fight because that's what he loves to do. And I love Nate Diaz, and he's a trillion times the man I will ever fucking be for being able to step into the ring, the octagon, whatever he does next and whatever he's done in the past. But the fact of the matter is, like, you just look at the guy and it's like, you know, he kind of does struggle with sentences. But, you know, a lot of that could also be Jorge Masvidal might be a little salty, you know. Interesting, right? It's interesting. These guys fought a long time ago, and you know, maybe things haven't gone the best for them, but I wish those guys the best, man. As a fan, I really do. I wish those guys nothing but the best in their future. UFC Vegas 63 weigh-in results. Calvin Kattar, Arnold Allen on point for main event. One fighter misses big. Okay, so I'm happy that the main event is good to go. Who is the fighter that missed weight big this morning? While 21 of the 22 fighters were on the mark, the card's opening bout became a catchweight newcomer, Joshua Weems, taking the fight on short notice to replace Garrett Armfield. Ooh. Weighed in at 139.5 for his bantamweight fight with Christian Rodriguez. And especially if you're a newcomer, again, no disrespect, but like, that's like the worst thing you could do. That might even be worse than like losing a good fight or just losing any fight, right? Like not making weight, because, you know, you're kind of screwing yourself there, but that really pisses Dane off. That really pisses the UFC off. Really pisses matchmakers off, because then they start to wonder as to whether if you can make the weight or not. Arizona clears Anderson Silva to box Jake Paul after submitting pristine MRI. So yeah, remember I just brought up the fact that it was a little fishy that all of Jake Paul's fights were in, you know, have been canceled, and even this third one was in danger of, were in jeopardy of being canceled, right? So it looks like the fight's gonna happen, thank God, because again, how fishy would it have been if this guy's third fight gets canceled? I mean, that would have been so fucking weird. So former UFC champion Anderson Silva was cleared to box Jake Paul on Thursday by the Arizona Boxing Commission after a special meeting was convened to decide whether he was off to compete. And this is all from MMAfighting.com again. The commission did not vote on the 47-year-old Silva's license to box Paul on Saturday at Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, because that had already previously been granted. Instead, the agency met to address additional medical documentation submitted by the ex-UFC champion and weigh public statements he'd made about his training, namely a pair of knockouts he said he suffered in a video shoot 1 month prior. Yeah, so Anderson Silva said he'd been knocked out twice in training. Well, he didn't say it. People thought he said it, but there was a miscommunication. He was joking, something along those lines. So do I believe that 100%? No, I don't. I'm going to be real with you. I don't believe that he didn't get knocked out. Like, why? I mean, what is he going to say? Yeah, I did get knocked out. Yeah, now the fight's going to be off. Now I'm not going to get a payday. Now I'm not going to knock this kid out that everyone wants me to knock out. No, he's not going to say that. So, man, I don't know. But if the guy had a good MRI, I mean, I don't know how, how accurate are these MRI tests? Do they know if you've been knocked out twice within a month? Probably, again, but I'm just not a doctor, so I have no clue, and I don't even want to say anything that would be wrong, so I don't know. Jake Paul and Anderson Silva make bet fighters union or kickboxing rematch. Again, I don't know, man. Like, do you really want to see Anderson Silva and Jake Paul in a kickboxing match? You want to see Anderson Silva or you want to see Anderson Silva more in his wheelhouse than this fight, even more? You want to see Anderson Silva less restrained than in this fight? Put him in a kickboxing match with Jake and one leg kick and he's fucking done. One kick to the body, he's done. That's it. Morning Report, Israel Adesanya wants to see Jake Paul shake up the world with Anderson Silva win. So Israel Adesanya is rooting for Jake Paul. I'm going to be honest. He's a tough fight, but I said this to you at your house after your Nate Robinson fight. Oh, I think he's talking to Jake here. So Israel Adesanya tells Jake, I'm going to be honest. He's a tough fight, but I said this to you at your house after your Nate Robinson fight, and I was like, man, you're a crazy motherfucker. Okay, so this was on Jake's podcast. He told him, and I still maintain that you're a crazy motherfucker. So you even getting this fight happening, it's something that is going to go down in history, and you can get it done. Silva can be beat. This is boxing as well. It's not MMA. He is getting older, and I don't really think that plays a factor, as everyone is saying. Don't fucking believe the hype just because he's 42 or whatever. He's 47. He's a different kind of 42-year-old. He's 47, but it's okay. I think you can get it done, but don't fucking sleep on Silva. It's going to be a bad night. I want to see you shake up the world. It's fun to see you just throw your shit everywhere. Yeah. All the people that come at Izzy's Frosted Tips are going to fucking hate the fact that he went on Jake Paul's podcast. Not me. I'm just saying. There's a lot of haters out there. I don't think Izzy gives a shit, though, right? Why should he? Dude's on top of the world. Credit to the man. He's got a big fight coming up. Alan Juban offers advice to Beneil Dariush, who, quote, shot himself in the foot by refusing title shot call. He says, I was telling everyone, I was in Bristol at ESPN. Beneil was winning the fight, and I go, Beneil wins this fight. He had better take that hot mic and call out a title shot. Joban said, the fighter versus the writer. It better not go to the thank you, Lord, Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you to you, coach. Thank you to my wife. Shit, I think he's right about that. Sure enough, he wins the fight, and that's all he did was that. Listen, man, I get it. Like, I just get it from both sides. Here's the thing. The sad truth of the matter is we are in a world where it's all about how many clicks you can get, how many views you can get, all that stuff. That's just the world that we live in today, right? So it's just the truth, man. Like, if you call out somebody and they can clip that and they can make that a viral video and everyone wants to see the fight, that's kind of how the game works nowadays. But at the same time, he's a respectful guy. He doesn't want to play into this whole new world bullshit of you got to have a certain amount of likes and this, that, and the other. So I get that. I respect both sides of it. But I don't think he's crazy for saying that. Like, if he would have grabbed the mic and called him out, that was before Volkanovski would have had the shot to walk out after the main event and, get in there and face off one of those guys. Like, that's not a bad idea. Let's get into a couple more headlines here, and then we'll wrap this bitch up. Jake Paul excited to be an underdog against Anderson Silva. You're not an underdog against Anderson Silva. Stop trying to make this an underdog story. Even my brother was like, are you sure you're ready for this? Bro, you're the favorite. Whatever. Be it you're the slight favorite. Whatever. You're the favorite. Like, what game are you trying to play here next? Are you going to say you hyperextended your elbow again after the fight? Even if you do win, just so that it seems like you could have done it easier? Let's not go into this game now, bro. You're here. You took the fight, right? So why are you talking about, oh, should you be here? No, well, you're here, right? You wanted to take the fight. That means you think you're ready. It doesn't matter what nobody else thinks. Are you ready? If you're ready, then you're in it, man. I don't hate you. You know, I got nothing against you. Shit, if you win, whatever, man. It's not going to be the end of my world. Just, you know, it is for a lot of other MMA fans. I don't get that, but because that doesn't disparage what Anderson Silva's done. Anderson Silva beating Chael Sonnen, beating Forrest Griffin, beating Vitor Belfort with that front kick to the face. None of that gets erased because Jake Paul beat him when he was 47 in a boxing match, in a fight that is not MMA. None of that gets erased. So, again, I have nothing against Jake because of that. Like, maybe if there was more, things on the line at stake, like Anderson Silva's legacy gets ruined and it screws up MMA, maybe. I'm not going to lie, maybe I'd hate him a little more, but I got no reason to hate the guy. And, I mean, neither should you guys. Anthony Smith, Khamzat Chimaev should move to middleweight for bigger fights. Really? Because I feel like welterweight's more stacked. Let's see what Anthony Smith has to say. Honestly, I think he should go to middleweight because he's only getting older. He's still a pretty young guy. He's only going to continue to get bigger. And by taking that off his plate, he could grow technically and athletically so much faster without having to suck his body down. True. Anthony Smith says, what happens is you start to train, you get in some of these camps, and you're training all the time, and your body wants to grow. It wants to be healthy. It wants to take in more fuel. Your body wants to adapt what it's doing. If you're also sucking yourself down and stopping that process, pause, you're just hurting yourself. I'm such a child. Did you see the wrestling match between Chimaev and Hermanson? Smith said. Did you see the size of that goddamn guy? That is true. Khamzat's size shocked me. He was in there with a middleweight. He looked way bigger than him. So, you know, I'm sure he gets into what he said in the headline that there's better. Okay, let's see. There's better fights from at 85. I think his name value means more at 85 right now. There's crazy superstars at 70. 85 could use a couple. See, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to argue. But I guess he's saying it too. It's crazy how headlines can be so misleading. But yeah, 170, there's better fights. But I think Anthony Smith, who's a very smart guy himself, as an analyst and a fighter, he makes a good point. Like, if he doesn't have to worry about sucking himself down, which is proven to be an issue, because he didn't make weight in the last fight, evidently it's an issue for him. If he could just focus on his technique and not sucking himself down and staying in a weight where he's comfortable, I think that could really help him out. I really do. Sean O'Malley fires back at critics, calling win over Piotr Jan a robbery. You wanted me to lose in the first place. He says, woke up this morning ranked number 1 in the world. Shit ain't photoshopped. It does feel good. It's crazy. It would have lost the fight. People would have if I would have lost the fight, people would have put a lot more respect on my name. Damn, he lost to that motherfucker. Good. Now it's like he won. You got to be shitting me. Man, again, was it a close fight? For me, it was. Like, I don't know if that was a robbery per se. Like, would you guys categorize that as a robbery? I'm really interested in seeing what you have to say about that. All right, man, that's going to wrap it up, guys. We talked about UFC 280. We talked about UFC Vegas, whatever number it is, 60-something. Arnold Allen versus Calvin Kattar. We talked about Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. Wrapped up with some MMA news. Again, Talkin MMA will be back. Just the podcast. The channel will still be here with everything else. That was my dog that just jumped off my bed. But the podcast will be here. The podcast will be improved. And again, man, we'll see you guys soon with another episode. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. And we're going to bring you guys the best content we can.